In 49 BCE, Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon River, a decision that set the stage for a civil war and forever changed Rome's destiny. It was a point of no return. Caesar, now no longer just a general, would soon become the most powerful figure in the Roman world. But was he a dictator, seizing power by force? Or was he a revolutionary, seeking to reshape the Roman Republic into something new? To truly understand this question, we need to break down Caesar's rise, his military conquests, his reforms, and the events that led to his betrayal. Caesar's rise didn't start in Rome. It began in Gaul. From 58 BCE to 50 BCE, he waged one of history's most famous military campaigns. We all know how he became a part of the first triumvirate with Pompey and Crassus, but after Crassus died in 53 BCE, the triumvirate collapsed. Meanwhile, Caesar's conquest of Gaul not only expanded Rome's borders, but it also transformed Caesar from a promising politician into a military legend. These victories also earned him immense wealth, loyalty, and influence. All of this scared Pompey and other senators who wanted to keep a check on Caesar's power. The more power Caesar gained, the more it threatened the status quo. And soon his growing influence was seen as a threat to the Republic itself. By 49 BCE, the tension was unbearable. Caesar's alliance with Pompey had completely crumbled, and the Senate, led by Pompey's supporters, demanded that Caesar disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. To give up his army would be to give up his power entirely. Caesar knew this was a critical juncture. His next move would be the defining moment of his life. The Rubicon River was the boundary between Gaul and Italy, and Roman law forbade any general from crossing it with an army. To cross the Rubicon with a fully armed legion was treason, a direct challenge to the Senate and the Republic. But Caesar made his choice. In an act of defiance and boldness, he famously declared, "The die is cast," and led his army across the Rubicon. The moment Caesar crossed that river, he wasn't just challenging Pompey or the Senate, he was challenging the very structure of the Roman Republic. Crossing the Rubicon wasn't just a physical act, it was a political declaration. It was Caesar's way of saying, "The old ways of governance are over. Rome needs a new beginning." In contrast, the Senate believed that Caesar wants to become a dictator. It doesn't matter how noble your intentions are, nobody is above the law. And in a way, they were right. Caesar was taking power into his own hands with the power of the sword, like any dictator would. As Caesar's army marched south toward Rome, the Senate realized that they had no choice but to abandon the city. Pompey's legions were too far away to protect the capital. And in their fear, the senators quickly deserted Rome, fleeing to the south to join Pompey and allowing Caesar to take Rome without raising even a single sword. Caesar, now in control of Rome, gathered his legions and set out after Pompey. The two would meet at Pharsalus in 48 BCE. Pompey, with the support of the Senate, had amassed a much larger army, but Caesar's strategy at Pharsalus was a masterpiece of military tactics. He used his smaller force's speed and maneuverability to exploit Pompey's army's larger size and slower response time. The battle at Pharsalus was brutal. Pompey's forces were completely routed. Caesar's legions tore through Pompey's lines, and Pompey, now a defeated man, fled the battlefield towards Egypt to find refuge where he was betrayed and assassinated, leaving Caesar as the undisputed ruler of Rome. The Senate and Pompey's forces had been crushed, and Rome's political system had been reshaped forever. After Pompey's death, most of the senators, including Scipio Africanus, Marcus Junius Brutus, Gnaeus Pompeius, Pompey's own son, returned to Rome and became a part of the Caesar's administration. After his civil war victories, Caesar moved quickly to consolidate his power and introduce sweeping reforms that would change Rome forever. These reforms were not just about political maneuvering, but about restructuring Roman society to reflect the changes Caesar had initiated. One of Caesar's most significant reforms was his land redistribution program. By providing land to veterans and the urban poor, these reforms weakened the power of the old aristocracy, who controlled vast estates and allowed Caesar to further secure his base of support, ensuring that Caesar had the common people's loyalty. Caesar's Julian calendar reform was another of his significant contributions. Prior to this, the Roman calendar was based on the lunar cycle, which differed in different parts of the Roman Empire. The Julian calendar introduced a solar year with 365 days, making it far more reliable. Perhaps the most controversial of Caesar's reforms was the extension of Roman citizenship to many provincial allies, particularly the Gauls. By granting citizenship to non-Romans, Caesar not only expanded the empire's political system, but also diluted the power of the Senate. However, by modern standards, Caesar did something way ahead of his time to promote equality throughout the empire. This sort of reform was unheard of in an empire that took pride in being Roman and considered people from new provinces lesser beings. In addition to his political reforms, Caesar oversaw massive public works projects that transformed the city of Rome. One of the most notable was the construction of the Forum of Caesar, a grand space that not only symbolized his power, but also served as a hub for Roman commerce and politics. His construction projects also helped stimulate the economy, creating jobs and wealth for the common people. Despite his popularity among the masses, Caesar's centralization of power and reforms eventually alienated the Roman elite. As Caesar's power grew, many in the Senate saw him as a threat to their authority and the very foundations of the Roman Republic. As Caesar took his seat, the conspirators closed in, surrounding him, their daggers hidden beneath their togas. The first blow came from Julius Cimber, a senator and one of Caesar's supposed allies. He pulled at Caesar's toga, distracting him for just a moment. Then, in that instant, the first stab was made. Caesar, still sitting, was hit in the neck, and the Senate chamber exploded into chaos. One by one, the conspirators took their turns, stabbing Caesar 23 times in total. But the most painful wound came last, the final stab, delivered by none other than Brutus, a man whom Caesar had trusted and raised to power. According to legend, as Caesar looked into the eyes of his betrayer, he muttered, "And you, Brutus?" Was Julius Caesar a dictator who seized power for himself, or a revolutionary who sought to reshape Roman society? Caesar's legacy is both complex and dual. He was undoubtedly a dictator, concentrating power in his hands. However, one could also argue that Caesar actually devolved power back to the people, and the senators never really had any problems with Caesar until he began the reforms that gave more power to the people. So who really was the dictator? Was it Caesar, or were all senators dictators in their own right, who in their positions held immense power? Caesar's assassination did not restore the old republic. Instead, it set in motion the rise of the Roman Empire, an empire that would carry Caesar's vision of centralization, power, and expansion far beyond the republic's borders. Caesar didn't destroy Rome, he redefined it.